Okay, number 4, psychological question. Also referred to as communication question, but more commonly psychological questions. Your Aemca is always going to have these. In fact, some Aemcas are focused on psychological questions. Most scenarios will have one. They tend to be an extreme situation of some kind where a patient is experiencing some type of agitated or even violent state, where de-escalation is the key, or they tend to be you're put in an emotional support role. So somebody's child died, husband died, and you are there to comfort them and you're trying to determine the right thing to say. So let's take a look at it and try to determine how to best answer this. Once in the ambulance, patient begins to get agitated with paramedics. Okay, so agitated, that can mean anything. Patient is ripping off all monitoring devices, okay, and continuously trying to leave the ambulance. Also important, he is trying to get up and leave. Presumably, if you let him, he would get up and leave the ambulance. Patient is unable to stand. Super important. That means if he does stand, he will likely fall. If he likely falls, he will hurt himself. And continues to scream and make incomprehensible sounds. That's also important because it's his actual behavior. Okay. You attempt to reapply monitoring devices, but patient continues to rip them off. That should tell you that clearly putting those monitoring devices on is bothering him. Patient does not appear to understand anything you or your partner say to him. Police are unavailable at this time. Your best course of action at this time is to do what? Okay. So let's look at these options. A, speak firmly to patient and state. So speak firmly, first thing they mention here, that is appropriate sometimes. And state, I am in charge. Okay. Sit down immediately and let me do my job. Super aggressive way to speak to somebody. Insanely aggressive. Push patient back into stretcher. Push. If he tries to get up. That's a crazy, terrible answer. It's terrible for a bunch of reasons. Speaking firmly, there's nothing wrong with that in current situations. There's nothing wrong with that in certain situations. In this situation, it doesn't seem like a good idea. To state I am in charge is insane. There's just no reason a paramedic should ever be stating that. In fact, you're almost never in charge. And it's just a crazy thing to say. Sit down immediately. There's pretty much, no, there just is not a reason you should ever say that to somebody, okay? And if you did say that, they're not going to listen. That's just so adversarial. And let me do my job, that's just terrible. So this is the clear, terrible option. And believe it or not, with these questions, there's generally one option that is clearly terrible and clearly not the answer. Then you'll find two options that seem extremely similar, very hard to tell them apart, and one option that's maybe the answer, okay? So the next option, continue to apply monitoring devices, okay. And speak gently to the patient. Speak gently is a good idea. Please sit down. We need you to be still for us to help you. Move away from the ambulance door. Not a terrible answer. May even be the answer. So entertain that. We'll come back to it. C, allow patient to unhook himself. Okay. Place yourself between patient and the door. Interesting. Speak gently to patient and state, we are paramedics. We found you on the floor. We're here to help. So there's not much difference in the statements between B and C. They're both decent. Hold down and restrain patient with the help of your partner and call attend 2000. Not an insane answer like A was, but then it literally says restrain. Can paramedics restrain people? They can. Is the description of when you can restrain somebody clear? No, not at all. And it's certainly something that should be explored by every college, and it is. And it states where and when you can do it, but it's very complicated. I would say that it would be inappropriate to restrain this person. I would also say, based on his behavior that we know of, trying to restrain him is not going to go well at all. What you'll find in these types of situations and what they want you to do is de-escalation. It's always de-escalation. The reason it's de-escalation is because paramedics have literally no other option anyway. It's the only thing that we can do, and they expect you to do it. Only B and C are de-escalation. The other two are being aggressive. There's never a situation where you're going to be aggressive as a paramedic, okay? So B or C. Continue to apply monitoring devices is in B. That's a bad idea. We know that's a bad idea because the patient keeps ripping them off. And to take that even further, the information you get here says that you try to put them back on and he immediately rips them off again. De-escalation is trying to de-escalate. It's trying to do anything you can to decrease their agitation. So by trying to put the monitoring devices on, you're going to agitate this person. You know that for sure. It's not a good idea. But let's keep going. Speak gently to patient. Please sit down. We need you to be still for us to help you. There's nothing wrong with that statement at all. You say please. There's nothing wrong with that statement. Move away from the ambulance door. Okay. Move away from the ambulance door could be a good idea if you feel like you are physically threatened. In fact, if you felt you're physically threatened, it is absolutely a good idea. It might even be a good idea to just leave. But then you have to determine if we're being physically threatened here. And if you read this, you're not. Right? Now he's screaming and making incomprehensible sounds and ripping stuff off of him. That does not equate to him wanting to hurt you or displaying the fact that he's going to. That doesn't mean he can't hurt you. He might even inadvertently hurt you, but there's no clear attempt for him to hurt you at all. So why would you be afraid of standing between him and the door? Why would you move out of the way of the door? Another thing is, what if he sees that door? He is almost certainly going to go for that door, and if he goes for that door and he leaves, he's gone. We already know he can't stand. He's going to hurt himself. What you want to remember with these types of situations and these questions in particular is that patient is your responsibility and you're the only one there to advocate for him. You are there to advocate for his health in its entirety. It is in his best interest to not leave that ambulance, and you know that. Now, you can't physically do anything, but as the next option puts it, you can put yourself between the patient and the door. Why would that be a good idea? Literally out of sight, out of mind. If he doesn't see that door, he probably won't go for it. Also, another good part about C, allow patient to unhook himself. Who cares that he takes all the monitoring devices off? It doesn't matter. Give him a couple seconds, keep your distance, put yourself between him and the door, and allow him to relax. Keep in mind you can still jet out the back of the door should things turn. But there's not really any indication that that's going to happen. And then the statement is fine in C. So the answer is C for that reason, because it allows you to advocate for your patient in every single way. It's employing de-escalation, which is always what they're going to want to see in these scenarios. It is definitely the correct answer. What you see with these and what I saw with the people who participated is a clear 50-50 split between B and C. And that's pretty standard. So just sit there and really think about these. Personally, I find them difficult. Some people find them very easy. I've always found them difficult. And they take a lot of time because you have to read the entire thing, go through all the options. This would even be something that I would probably put a star next to and just leave, do the rest of the exam, and come back and do these questions last.